Hello, everyone. Welcome to Online Seller UK podcast. My name is Prabhat. I'm founder at Online Seller UK. And we've been doing this series of podcasts with GS1UK to bring in really good understanding about how GTIN or EAN or UPC work with Amazon especially. So today I've got Lorna with me, and today we'll be talking about listing white label products on Amazon. Lorna, welcome to our podcast.
Hi, Prabhat. Nice to be here, as always.
Yeah, excellent. So, Lorna, do you want to introduce yourself very quickly?
Yep, sure. I'm Lorna Lever from GS1UK, as you mentioned. I'm one of the industry engagement managers. My area specifically is marketplaces. So I help our members to kind of iron out any issues that they might have with trading online, and then also obviously teach them about the standards that we do to enable their businesses to do that easier, basically.
Excellent. So white label products. So it has been a big subject for some time. We know that lots of smaller retailers have gone on and established themselves with their own brand, calling themselves white label or their own brand. So today we'll be talking about some challenges around that white label. So do you want to shed some light on that?
Yeah, I would say that white label is definitely the thorn in the sides. And what I would say is that we haven't really figured it out yet. In fact, we talked about that in the previous session, is that we were actually asking for members and users of the numbers to come and help us understand how to do that better, actually. So we're trying to update the standard to make sure that those rules are easier for the industry to follow, because obviously with the GTIN, the allocation rules mean that it should be the manufacturer and or the brand owner that is the person that applies the GTIN to the product. And obviously with things like generic products, that just doesn't happen at the factory point, because obviously the factory wants to be able to sell it to as many customers as they possibly can. And then equally, Amazon wants to pull it into one product page so that the consumer can find it easily. But then equally, the sellers want to differentiate themselves so that they don't have to have all of the competition on the buy box. So there's kind of two ideas that compete against it, which mean that the numbers aren't being used in the market as they should be. So it's a big challenge for sure.
Yes. So we were looking just before we had started the conversation that Amazon is now allowing white label sellers to list product without GTIN number, and even allowing people to list without brand name. So I think the listing without brand name is quite risky one, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we've seen that new tick box come in where you can tick it if there's no brand, but I think that's ultimately come about because they were almost using too many sort of values, like they were using up NA, capital N / capital A, generic, and the sellers were just getting, well, we get it all of the time in our help desk. What is it that I'm supposed to put if I don't have a brand? And so I think that's where the tick box has come about. But equally, I think the contention is coming in that people want to list without a brand. I mean, personally, for me, your Amazon strategy should be a branded product, personally. Then it seems that Amazon doesn't want branded product on there either. But they're kind of sort of sitting in the middle with not really allowing it versus allowing it. So it's making it really hard for sellers to understand what they need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you are listing product like we've seen that example of a fan, where there were 56 people selling the same products. For consumers, I think it's a little bit risky. I wouldn't use the word risky, but they don't know the quality of product, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Because one seller may bring in exactly the same type of product, but there's no brand. So I can bring similar feature product, but maybe a lower quality, and I can sell that product with that on that listing at a lower price. But personally, I think it has to go towards a brand way. Otherwise, the quality will not be maintained, I don't think.
Yeah, I think the days of checking stuff on Amazon and hoping for the best has kind of gone now. Like you need to be serious about a brand and building that brand. Obviously, building a brand on Amazon itself is very hard to do, but I think you need to have that intention at the very least. Otherwise, it's just a numbers game, right? You just chuck in something that's a commodity and hoping for the best. Whereas I think you need to be a bit more serious about it now to have success.
Yeah. So, so if we are to list a brand, and I think brand listing will require GTIN on Amazon. So, so is there any specific things you want to talk about, relations with GTIN and the brand name?
Yeah. So probably it's in fact it's probably our second most frequently asked question that we get. The top one being, I put GTIN and it's saying invalid, so you need to select EAN. So I'll just get that one in there because that's our top frequently asked question. But the second one comes about where you've put it in and you've put your brand name in, and then it comes up the EAN or UPC does not match for the brand you're trying to list. Well, sadly, that error message is a bit too generic and kind of comes up for multiple scenarios, which again confuses the sellers. And because of the way that it's worded, it makes it sound like there's something wrong with the GTIN that we've given you. Because actually it's Amazon's listing policies that is doing other stuff on the back end of understanding who is the license holder, so who is the member that GTIN belongs to versus the product that's being listed and the account that's being listed by. So the Amazon is basically taking a file from us every day, which we've been talking about for quite a few years now, and that is the license information. So who does this GTIN belong to? Then it has a look at the Amazon account that's listing the product and then the brand for the product being listed. Now, if there's a mismatch between any of those names, that could be quite legitimately, right? So say, for example, back in the day of Arcadia, that was the holding company, but the brand would be Dorothy Perkins or Burton, for example. So it may be that that's absolutely fine, but Amazon is going to require proof to show that the brand name is allowed and authorized by that holding company. So if you've got trademark certificates, which you should be with your brand, right? But it can be as basic as something like an invoice for the actual transaction of the stock to show that you're authorized to sell it. Basically, they just want to know that you haven't just acquired stock through dodgy means. That's all. But that isn't anything that we can control. And I think the annoying bit of the error, it means that it looks like there's something wrong with the number. It basically can just be resolved by raising the case with Amazon. And it's almost like they whitelist that selling account for that brand. Yeah. I actually had one this week where it was the brand owner. So they were trying to list their products. And the names matched, it matched the brand name on the product, matched the license holder, everything. They still weren't allowed to. And that was because they were wholesaling the product to other sellers, right? But those people had listed it on Amazon before them. And so Amazon is kind of whitelisted that seller for the product, but not actually the brand owner itself. So it's still the same process that you have to follow. You have to be approved to sell that brand. And it can be really confusing, which I totally get. Yeah.
So I've also seen situations both in Seller and Vendor Central where they've sort of allowed to list certain number of flats of EAN numbers, and certain they said it's not mismatched. And like you've mentioned before, it's not the problem with the EAN number. It's they are not recognizing it. So in that case, what we did, we send them GS1 certificate. So that's important, I think, to remember, because every account we get with GS1UK, we get a certificate saying such and such company owns a certain start of the year number. And when we supplied that certificate, within a couple of days, they approved the list of year numbers, and we haven't had issues. So if anybody is listening to this podcast and having similar issues, yes, so go through your certificate from GS1UK and send that to Amazon, and things will work.
Absolutely, yeah. Your license for your prefix, which you can get, you can self-serve that. You can go into your GS1 account, and it lives under the left-hand navigation under subscriptions, and you'll find your certificate. Yeah, there. Yeah, that along with trademarks and stuff, that should resolve that problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes I know for me it may be simple because I know it and I've done it, but for lots of other people, it's sometimes it can be really difficult. So it's good that we're talking about it, so they can, people who's listening can find that easily and resolve the problem. So moving on, other issues I'm seeing with the brands now is that brands not registering their product on Amazon. Like you've had the case before when you give an example, and somebody else registering the product with Amazon first. So I think for brands that it's not, I can say they're waking up to the issues now, that they are never thought that would happen, and maybe they didn't want it, and they are seeing this. So what do you suggest for brands to do in those situations?
Yeah, I think there is certainly with some of the bigger brands, they kind of think, well, I'm not going to be on Amazon, that's it. Well, actually, just because you're not going to be there yourself, certainly if you wholesale to people, you can pretty much guarantee someone else is going to put your products on Amazon. So if you're not participating in that, then you're almost allowing your brand to be represented in any way without any control over that, which really, even if you're not going to be actively selling, I think having the brand registry so that you've got the ultimate governance over the listing is definitely the way to go. That was definitely something that we always made sure that we had for any of the companies that I worked at. You need to be the person that is delivering the content for it and making sure that you've got the ultimate governance over your branded products.
Okay, so excellent. I think it's a good conversation we had with some white label products. So is there anything else you want to add before we finish this podcast?
I would say that it's something that's probably an ongoing conversation. So definitely come forward and help us understand the challenges that you have with it. It might not be for Amazon as well. It could be other marketplaces, but we have a group where we're trying to update the way that GTINs get allocated to help resolve these situations. So it may end up being that there's a couple of extra attributes that need to be utilized to understand the difference with the brand versus a non-brand, any kind of those scenarios. So definitely get in touch and come and help us. That's the point of being a member of GS1, right? You get to shape how these standards work, because you're the people that they have to work for.
Yeah, excellent. So okay, so let's leave it at that point. And again, thank you very much for participating in a series of podcasts. I think it's been well worth spending time on this, and I'm sure listeners will appreciate the time you've given and your insight on this.
No problem at all. Thank you for having me, as always.
Yeah, all the best. Bye for now.
Thank you.